Hello, everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. How is everyone doing this evening? Happy and blessed Monday, and welcome to episode 570 of the Welcome to Asgard podcast, where tonight we're going to talk about the truth behind the Fantastic Four First Steps box office, because there's been a lot of misinformation, half-truths, coping, especially about the movie, and let's just put it very bluntly, the film is flopping. There is no other way to describe it. Whether you accept the $200 million budget that there is being reports given about, or the more likely $300+ million budget, as it was indeed a film made in the United Kingdom by Disney. And if you've followed any of the reporting from Caroline Reed over at Forbes.com, you know that in every case when a Marvel film or a Disney film just in general has been filmed in the United Kingdom, they've always spent at least $100 million more than whatever the trades were reporting. So whichever one you want to accept, the numbers that we're seeing right now for Fantastic Four are bad. And in fact, now we have the actuals from the weekend, and it's a bit worse. It was already bad enough at a 66% drop from week 1 to week 2. Now it's at a 67% drop. However, to throw a bone to the MCU and to Fantastic Four, there were a lot of people, and I know that I myself back in the day would also run with this because it makes a good title. It makes a very good headline, and sometimes it can indicate what the likely box office drop, or at the very least the direction a box office drop is going in. But a lot of people were running with that report of 80% drop Friday to Friday for Fantastic Four. Oh my goodness, 80%, everybody. It is catastrophe. Now look, a 66 to 67% drop in your second weekend as an MCU movie, it's not good. It's also not the worst that we've ever seen. So again, it's bad, because the MCU level drops have always been bad. The difference, of course, is that they used to be dropping in that 60% range with much higher opening weekends. And that, of course, is a thing of the past when it comes to the MCU. And so they're still seeing the same level of drops, the same level of front-loaded properties, of front-loaded IPs, but they're not making nearly as much money. The worst information, the worst news, honestly, about the Fantastic Four box office is how little the film is making internationally. Remember, it opened to $99 million in its international open. That was after Superman had opened to $95 million. And even though many people were willing to say, oh man, that's a rough international opening at $95 million, it seems like a lot less people were willing to say that it was rough for that film to have made $99 million. Again, that's just as bad. That's barely better. Not to mention a lower domestic. It also must be said because, again, some people I think were misinterpreting what my video from this past weekend was saying, that I'm not saying that Superman is a huge financial success either. However, in the battle between Superman and Fantastic Four, right now Superman is easily eating the lunch of the Fantastic Four. And based on the current projections, based on the current trends, it's never going to catch up. So Superman, I will say right now, has won the battle that it was having with Fantastic Four. The only hope that it had was those international numbers, and those international numbers did not show up for it. With all that being said, we also have to, of course, talk about how the real summer winner this year is Jurassic World Rebirth, which is destroying both of those films. So, a lot of stuff to talk about tonight, a lot of stuff to unpack, but let's go ahead and say hello to the people who are in the chat. We got Kimberly G, Killian Shadow Cat, who says, test worked. Yeah, for some reason, I use Stream Ninja, Social Stream Ninja, which is a really awesome, great free program. But for some reason, it just wasn't working when I first loaded things up. So I had to do a couple of test comments, and luckily they have gone through. By the way, make sure you smash the like button. Also, make sure that you smash the rumble button as well. And if you're watching over on Twitter/X, say hello. By the way, I thought I had clicked on the Streamlabs bot, Heimdall. Turns out that did not happen, so bear with me. Heimdall is loading up as we speak. I'm also going to try to make sure that, let's see, activate source. Let's see if that works. Boom. There it is. Howdy. All right, the X Twitter chat is now up and running. There we go. Perfect. And Heimdall is now up and running as well. There we go. All right, we got Jeremy Zakowski at 7:14 p.m. saying, "Evening, Odin, and everyone on here. I got tickets to go see Boston Symphony Orchestra for John Williams film themes in Tanglewood, Massachusetts. That's amazing. That's awesome. That should be a phenomenal concert." We got Laura, the Mother Major General, Story, short, hanging out tonight saying, "Howdy, y'all." And then as the number 3 ranked commenter saying, "This ranking system for comments really brings out my competitiveness." Yes, indeed. We found this out last stream because we did have our last morning Good Morning Asgard stream of the summer for 2025 last week. So there will not be a Wednesday morning show this week. But we did a giveaway. We gave away several films. By the way, I think it's Hosatako. Let me double check my list here. Yeah, Hosatako, you still need to email me. You still need to contact me. Bro, I don't know where to send your movie to. I said to do it right away, and you didn't do it. I'm upset. I am very, very upset. So I want you to make sure you contact me during this stream, or I might have to give it away to somebody else. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, that was last stream in honor of it being the last of the summer streams. We'll randomly every now and then do giveaways for, of course, my people in the chat who have been watching for a long time. Again, I like to do that for my longtime members here, occasionally on live streams. But now that there's the whole ranking system on YouTube side of things, it does definitely also make things a little bit more interesting there too. Mr. Roy, who is a member and a a Chosen of Valhalla member, saying, "Hello, what's going on, Mr. Roy? Glad to have you here." We got Fear of FEMA hanging out. Keely Chow hanging out as well. Forever Sci-Fi, who is a member, hail to you. Remember, if you have a comment or question, just put @Odin at the very beginning of the comment, @Odin. Let me know you're trying to get my attention. There's also this little ticker down here that says the same thing, in case you missed that part. Keely Chow, currently number 2 at 728, as of 728 at least, says here, "How are you, Thor, Freya, Baby Sif? Also, how was your weekend? All of us are doing well. Baby Sif is still very much awake. Little Thor looks like he's asleep. Kimberly G, Killian Shadow Cat, howdy Odin, all the chat. Hail, Shorty Short, and Snortapoopus. Hello, woman that other quitteth. Gotta love Snortapoopeth. Always gotta give the love to Snortapoopus." Gary Banjo Sandwich Worthington saying, "Hello there. Jimmy A is a member saying, "Hail, chat, what's going on, Jimmy A?" We got Joey's movie blog hanging out. How's it going? We got General Wingster, our pet troll here. The Morak, what's up, Morak? Who is a member saying, "Hail, Odin, talking back to school, the Rodney Dangerfield classic." No, just the fact that I and many teachers across the country are going back to school this week for our meetings. And then in the case of ours, we have students starting next Monday. Technically Thursday for me, because there's an orientation for new transfer students. So that'll be my first interactions there. Michael Baguette, what's going on, Michael? Time to say, "Hey, Odin, I'm sure you'll enjoy this." Oh boy. John Campia on his show tomorrow is doing a dedicated topic on how you cannot take inflation nor total ticket sales into account with box office comparison. Oh my goodness. You have got to be kidding me. Bro. John Campia. I mean, the dude lost his credibility years ago at this point, but if he's honestly going to try to die on this hill, it's getting just sad at this point. It's like, you can't take those things into account. Oh, so you can't take into account the fact that movies made a while ago are worth a lot more today. Okay, I can see why some people make that argument. Some people don't like inflation. The problem with me with that is when you can't get an exact ticket count, inflation is the next best thing. Because if you look and compare those two things together, you almost always see a direct correlation. Meaning, if you have a film from a long time ago that is worth a lot more today because of inflation. You also, if you even take that out of the equation, look at your ticket sales for it, you'll also see more tickets sold for that movie versus a similar equivalent here in today's world. So, I mean, again, to say both of them is ridiculous. It's one thing if you're going to go after inflation. Again, that still bothers me because you can't just ignore inflation. It is a very real thing in our world. And also, it is the easiest way because movie theaters don't report their exact ticket sales. I wish they did. My job would be so much easier if studios gave us their exact budgets and didn't just lie about them through the trades. I wonder if maybe John Campia should do a show about how trades oftentimes put forward fake numbers put forward by studios to try to cover them and try to make their investors happy and try to help their bottom line. I would call that fraud, but maybe John Campia would just call that maybe they'll send me out to the next premiere, and so therefore I'm just going to go ahead and go along with the company line. That's who John Campia is, guys. He's the one who wants his access. He loves his access. He'll do anything and everything to defend the studios, including go against logic itself. Oh, yeah, no, it doesn't matter that, millions more people saw that movie than today. It doesn't matter that they've lost half their audience or whatever it is. Bro, seriously? Spare me, man. Nonsense. By the way, we've had a lot of new subscribers here on the channel, so I just want to shout out everyone who is newly subscribed. And also, again, to the bunch of people that became members last stream because of English Batchers, who probably is asleep, because he is, as the name implies, I believe, from the United Kingdom. So he is very much late at night, as Gary Banjo7 could probably also to attest to. But he gave several memberships out last stream. And so, again, I do appreciate that. And you do get access to special podcasts. Just finally uploaded one. Took me a while. But me and Blaine from Criticalist talk a lot about this battle waging, even in the reviews between Fantastic Four, between it and Superman, James Gunn's Superman, and also, of course, Jurassic World Rebirth. All right, Justin C. Time to say, hail, Justin C. says, typical MCU drop indeed for Fantastic Four. This does not bode well for Doomsday. It does not, right? So again, this is not catastrophe, right? We can absolutely be honest about these numbers and say, okay, guys, seriously, this is not the end of the world as far as the worst box office that we've ever seen. That being said, it's also still bad. Two things can be true at the same time, right? This is not anywhere near the level of what the Marvels or I think it was Quantumania maybe, where we saw a massive drop 70-80%, right? There's been drops like that in previous iterations, and that was for the weekend, not just for your Friday to Friday. And we'll bring that up again because for anyone especially who is a hardcore defender of Superman, if you were one of those persons coming out about that 80% number, I got a number to show you. Jimmy A. Enjoyed Fantastic Four, but its flopping doesn't surprise me. People are burnt out on Marvel and Pedro Pascal, so putting the two together is a recipe for disaster. I'll push back on that a little bit, Jimmy A, because when it comes to normie audiences, I don't think many of them are honestly looking at that and saying, oh, it's Pedro Pascal, I don't want to see that. And I don't necessarily think it's Marvel, I don't want to see that. I think it's more so, keeping that Marvel component at least as a part of the reason. I think it's more of okay, what has Marvel done for me recently? All right, Marvel hasn't really had a great track record. Normally, their movies have some homework attached to them. And so I think that now, basically what Disney has done is they've trained the audience to assume these things going in. And I think that's probably what has driven them away. Not to mention, of course, their films have not been good. And I think that has a much bigger impact, right? If you are not delivering results, if you're not giving fans, if you're not giving audiences something that they can enjoy, something that they can consistently enjoy, that they can invest their time in. I mean, I think back to Game of Thrones, right? Game of Thrones was great. And I know some people might argue about when it went bad, but I think most people would say for 7 seasons, the show was great. And some would even say going into season 8, part of it at least, with the first couple or 2 or 3 episodes, it was still doing okay. But no one in their right mind would say that by the end of that season that they stuck the landing or that it was at that point any good, especially those last few episodes. The greatest example I have of this is my wife, because she, I would say, and I think she would admit to this as well, she's much more of a normie type audience. She's outside of this bubble that we oftentimes can find ourselves trapped in, and that's why we have to always be very careful and not to allow our biases to impact what's actually happening. And I remember I was bringing a lot of these things up, being like, man, this has just fallen so far off. And she was like, I enjoyed it. I liked it. But by the time that last episode especially came around, it came to the point where we were looking at each other laughing because of how bad it was. And so now she's fully on board of, yeah, that 8th season destroyed the show. I bring that up because that's now something that's going to keep a lot of people from ever rewatching it. Again, I know there's people out there that can still rewatch it, can still enjoy those first few seasons especially. But I know for someone like me, it's like, why would I want to invest my time in something again when I already know what's going to happen and it's not good? I think that is what a lot of people have probably been feeling when it comes to the MCU movies being released, is that why would I want to invest my time in a franchise when I already know this franchise has let me down before and likely will let me down again, and the direction that they're going in is very inconsistent, is tonally a mess, and there's no guarantee that I'm going to feel like I've gotten my money's worth. Because I can tell you this right now, the thing, going back to that John Campia comment, right, Michael, I think, going back to Michael Briggette's comment, I think that what he's going to try to do, this is what he's going to try to do, is he's going to try to say, well, think about how much the movie ticket costs today. We can't hold that against the movies because people are saving money because of the socioeconomic policies of blah, blah, blah. Like, he's going to try to make some argument that makes him sound really, really smart. But in the end, he's just, again, coping, seething, and playing cover. He's really just playing cover for Disney. He's playing cover for all of these different studios because guess what? It's the studios that have led to this problem. It's the studios that have made people not want to go to the theater again. People can keep on trying to bring up COVID. Again, I'm not going to say COVID had no impact, but what was the studio's reaction to COVID? They put all their money, they put all the eggs in the streaming basket. And when they did that, they made the choice. And that choice was, hey, the future is streaming. Everything is about streaming now. And what they did was they tried to train and retrain the brains of the general audience to consume media through a very different medium, through a very different way. Guess what? It worked. But it worked so well, and they decided, hey, we're to keep spending the same money that we need theatrical releases to really make our money back on these projects. And as they continue to do that, their quality fell off a cliff. And so they continued to push out more and more subpar, garbage tier content. That is what has led to this. That is what has led to this problem in the situation. So he's going to try to play cover, but it's still the studio's fault. It's still these are movies that are not good. Again, just because people are saying Fantastic Four is good, it's like, well, in comparison to what? If we're going to say, what is Fantastic Four in comparison to Captain America Brave New World? It's Shakespeare by comparison. Does that make it objectively a good movie? No. And I think anyone who has enjoyed it would say, yeah, it's still got a lot of these flaws that a lot of the modern Marvel films have. But hey, people can enjoy what they want to enjoy. Again, it's that difference and that separation between subjective and objective. And yet there's still people out there that say there's no such thing as an objectively bad movie. And again, the best retort to that you can ever give is, okay, tell me about Tommy Wiseau's The Room. Please explain to me how that's not a perfect example of an objectively bad movie. Now, again, we're not saying that these other movies that are going on right now are of that same level, but it does prove the point that there are objectively bad movies, and if that point has been proven, then that means the objective criticisms that people bring up are valid and legitimate. Anyway. Sorry, I get triggered whenever I hear about the silliness of a certain YouTuber. Virtual reality fitness, what is going on? Let us see here. We got Sick Parvis Magnus saying, hail to you. Geek True 64. I finally got to, guys, Geek True 64 and I have met in person. We grabbed some lunch together. It was wonderful. I had an Oreo milkshake, which was delightful, by the way. It was delightful. He's an awesome dude. Support him. Subscribe to his channel. Great physical media channel. He needs to make more videos, though. I think he does need to step up the video output a little bit, though. That's also why I like him, because he's not just pumping out videos for the sake of pumping out videos. So he's a good dude. Anyway, Geek264, who is a member as well, is saying, I do wonder if Fantastic Four would have done better if it didn't release the same month as Jurassic World and Superman. Strange they loaded the heaviest hitters into 1 month. Usually one will move dates. I don't think it would have, because I've said this before and I'll say it again. Just because there's competition at the box office does not mean that a movie is going to fail or is not going to make as much money necessarily. Greatest example of this is the Barbenheimer effect, right? That actually was a case where both films actually ended up making up more money down the line because of the competition, because of the memes, right? Because of that natural, the natural meme that came from that entire experience, right? So, competition alone is not going to be enough. I say this all the time, right? If you are a general moviegoer, you're going to be like, okay, what I want to see. Ooh, I like this one. Ooh, I like this one. I'll go see both. I'll see this one opening weekend. I'll see this one next weekend. Or, hey, I'll see both at the same time. In general, you're never going to have, I don't think it's as common of an experience for someone to be like, ooh, I can only see one of these movies. I can only see one. Which one is it going to be? That one's going to get my money. All the others not going to get anything. I just don't think that happens. Now, again, there's a lot less people going to movies in general. So you might have more of those types of persons out there, especially with how expensive ticket prices are. But again, I think that it is not really necessarily something that is, I think another great example of this is many people were speculating that Superman was going to have a massive drop when Fantastic Four came out because it was losing the premium format screens. Well, turns out, guess what? This weekend, it actually had its best percentage hold, despite the fact that it lost a lot of those theaters. So that's also another example, right, where it's like, okay, just because you're losing a premium format screen doesn't really mean that you're losing a boatload of money. Or just because there's competition internationally does not mean you're going to lose. Again, there are certain cases where you might have that. I think, for instance, Jurassic World being out is definitely impacting both the internationals for Superman and also for Fantastic Four, because that is just gobbling up the market. Because international audiences, right, this is something that I've made a point of before. When I say that, people typically don't make I have to see one or the other, that's not always the case, or not nearly as much of the case when it comes to international audiences. International audiences are much more likely to be more picky about the movies that they watch. So if there's like 3 movies from the West, 3 movies from America out at the same time, they're much more likely to say which American film do I want to see right now? Depending on the country, of course. But anyway, Luke Zilla saying, hello, Luke Zilla. Welcome back, welcome. Gandalf the Fat. Hail to you. David, got the rosary beats today. Thank you very much. Hey, David, no problem at all, man. Glad that you were able to get them. Forever Sci-Fi, who's a member, saying Superman and Fantastic Four hold the possibility of destroying characters people like. Jurassic Park can't ruin dinosaurs for people. I would push back a little bit because the CGI stuff just kills me every time. And now they're creating all of these hybrids and all of these, genetically modified ones. And so in that way, they're destroying them for me. But I see your point, though. Jenna Wingster tagged to say, if Pedro Pascal played every role, they would totally be beating Superman. I think you're right. KN Kareen, what's going on? Welcome back. Sick Parvis Magna saying, I won't see Fantastic Four because of Pascal. I'm so tired of him. Would rather see Superman again than that Fantastic Four film. But again, we're also in the space. That's the thing. That, in our space, in our bubble, there absolutely is Pedro Pascal fatigue. In the normie audience, in the, kind of like the outside of the bubble circle, I don't think you're seeing that nearly as much. Because, again, for them, it's it's Pedro Pascal. I like him. That's the general sentiment that people have. Not in our space, but X-Voot. What's up, X-Voot? Saying, what is your final projection for Jurassic World? I mean, again, when it comes to those final projections, it is a bit of a, who knows exactly what is going to make down the line. But let me go ahead and pull up those numbers so I get a bit of a metric here. As of right now, of course, that's the one movie that is not currently loaded on my chart. How dare you? How dare you? I will now reload. I must reload the chart. I love the numbers.com, but it's so slow. It's so slow. It has much less mistakes. It can have mistakes. There was a huge thing with this when Superman came out. Remember when the Superman international box office was being reported, and for some reason people believed it? Even like really smart people that I respect. I was like, bro, this is clearly an error. Like, just mathematically, this is not a possible thing. And it is something that has happened where these sites do have data entry errors. Like, this is stuff that does happen. Of course, it is not loading up for me. And so now I've got to use Back Debit Mojo. Sad, because I had to actually pull up several Box Office Mojo numbers for other films that I was going to talk about in a bit. But that is the state of things. All right, as of right now, it's at $766 million. It's still tracking well. It's dropping still in like the 30s and 40s domestically, still holding internationally as well, right? That separation is still about 60-40 for the international. That's about where you typically see very, very successful films. Right now, it's tracking to do, at least 800 million. And I would say still the final range is 800 to 900 million, which is still impressive because the tracking that it's been following should be probably a little bit less, because the last film was $1 billion. This film is tracking behind that in several markets. So this just, again, is a testament to the movie. And don't forget, this movie opened domestically to $92 million. But it's legged out. It's had good holds, And in fact, this is actually a good one for me to have up as well. Let's see. It also had that holiday frame, so that might impact those numbers a little bit, but yeah. So yeah, I would say 800 to 900 million is what that one's looking like with its current tracking. Jimmy A says, even the summer winter, Jurassic World is doing less than the previous movies. Yes, to no one's surprise. I mean, think about it. Like the next, probably the second next, because as you all know, I am of the mind that we'll have one more $1 billion film before Avatar comes out. I do think that there's a chance for Zootopia 2. It has a chance. I really do think. Kind of similar to the effect that like Lilo and Stitch had, where it's a well-known property coming out. Again, in that case, it was a live action adaptation, so it had that kind of, I guess, you could argue advantage. But Zootopia also was a massive IP. I think Zootopia 2 could potentially do that as well. All right, so Heel99, what is going on? Heel99 at 739 saying, Robert Meyer Burnett, RMB said on today's Upside of Film Threats Versus that Fantastic Four is doing fine compared to movies like Captain America 1 and Doctor Strange 1. Bro, and that's the issue, right? If you're looking at it from the raw numbers without adjusting for inflation, yeah, it looks pretty good. But in comparison, it's not nearly as good of a story. The bigger thing, too, and the bigger problem is when you actually look at ticket sales. So if you take the total domestic and say, what was the average ticket price back when those films came out, and then compare that to what the average ticket price is for this movie, it's not even close. So it's not doing fine in comparison. There has been a massive audience drop. Now, we can say this is a healthy box office result compared to recent Marvel fare, if we're comparing it to The Marvels, if we're comparing it to Quantumania, if we're comparing it to even just from this year, comparing it to Thunderbolts, comparing it to Captain America Brave New World, it's doing good, right, in connection with those films, relative to those films. But relative to the MCU, no, this is still like towards the bottom tier. Again, if we're treating them equally. And that's the only way that you can actually do it fairly. If you're not going to adjust for inflation, you got to at least do ticket sales. Take the average ticket price of that year, put them up, plug that in. I've done that several times before, and it always shows you the same thing, which is that these movies are just not doing the same numbers, not even close. Forever Sci-Fi, with all of the end of summer talk, I've now got the song from Meatballs stuck in my head. I've seen that movie way too many times. Fun fact, I've actually never seen that. Tom Siebert, welcome to the chats. Gary Banjo Sandwich Worthen saying, this is a comedy special and Campia is doing the math. Seriously. Jonah Wingster, I just ignore inflation and still pay 99 cents per gallon. Man, wouldn't that be amazing? Victor Fontaine over on the Green Machine saying, not just Campia, I've been hearing a lot of, I call them gun nuts because, yeah. Defending Superman versus Man of Steel, saying you can't use inflation for comparisons because it's a different time. Yeah, basically, you can't use inflation because it defeats my argument. That's really what it comes down to. They don't want inflation because it proves the point. And so therefore they can't allow it. And so they'll come up with anything and everything to say why that's not fair. But that's the thing. Even you can take the same thing with Superman versus Man of Steel. Okay, fine. Take the average ticket price for 2013 when Man of Steel was out. Plug that into its total domestic. Do the same thing for this one. Guess what? Man of Steel wins by a lot. And then the immediate excuse is, well, COVID. Okay. Once you mention COVID at this point, you've lost. All right, Jimmy A says here, the goalpost movie from John Campia has gotten ridiculous. I don't talk about this guy often, but man, he has really hit a new low. I mean, he hit lows a a long time ago. I'm honestly just amazed that people still watch the guy. That's the thing that gets me. Because that's the only reason why he's still around, is because people actually still give him any credibility. It does not. I mean, this is something I mentioned several times before. I thought he was non-credible since his time on AMC Talk. I still remember, I forget which movie he was talking about, but he had a panel of people on. They were talking about a movie, and they were all agreeing with each other. And there I am in the comments being like, no, you're wrong. This is not good. Gandalf the Fatty is from the UK. It's almost 1 a.m. there. Mac, what's going on? General Wingster, Odin, did you do your homework? Ha. H Dizzle Network, welcome. You'll get a lot of words tonight. H Dizzle. Justin C, who tagged to say, outside of Weapons and Nobody 2, August looks to be a slow month. Doubt Freaker Friday has generated much buzz. I could see that film doing better than people might think, because the first film was successful. The first film did do well. So it'll do fine. But we're talking, maybe 30 to 50 million in its domestic opening. So for a movie like it, that sounds good. But it's not going to do like the $100 million or anything like that. But as I mentioned, right, you can't just look at the, let's see, Freaker Friday, according to, I was almost exactly what Box Office Theory. He has it at 30 to 45 million. With a 3-day opening. Weapons at 27 to 37 million. Whoa. I actually know very little about Weapons other than it's like a random horror movie / demon thing. Isn't that what it is? I saw a random trailer for it. I'm like, what in the heck is this? And I'm not watching it. No, thank you. Gary says here, Game of Thrones went full pineapple pizza time in its last season. Yes, it did. Kimberly G. Shadowcat, Game of Thrones was destroyed by season 8. It broke my heart. Same here. Forever Sci-Fi, I usually wait about 3 seasons now before picking up a show. Then lets me filter out the ones that go woke or get canceled. And you know what? We could say that's the Game of Thrones effect. Game of Thrones will be written about, if it's not already, in the history books. About how you don't end a show, about what happens when your show's ending sucks, how to destroy a franchise. Again, the fact that House of the Dragon has done as well as it does is a testament to House of the Dragon and to the people that are now behind that project. Because that series was set to flop. Because no one was they were like, Game of Thrones? No, thank you. But if you look at the numbers for it, every week it picked up people because people are like, oh, this is actually not bad. Take that for what it is. Jimmy A, who's a member. Morbius is objectively the movie of all time. Exactly. You are exactly correct. All right, then Jimmy A, and then we'll jump back and cover the box office facts when it comes to Fantastic Four. Jimmy A saying, speaking of competition, Avengers Doomsday and Dune 3 are set to release the same day in 2026. Do you see one of them moving at this point? One has to just be just because the studios get scared. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. You always see this happen with the studios, right? One of them will blink. One of them will move. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me to see Doomsday move, because I feel like it's going to get delayed again anyway. I think that's the most likely case. It's not even that it moves because it's scared, but rather because they need more time, because they're going to do reshoots, or because they're going to spend even more money. Because let's be honest, I think Doomsday will be a big movie, by the way. And the only reason why is because look back to what Deadpool and Wolverine did. when you have the nostalgia, when you have all of the member berries on screen, right, as fan service, right? Some of the times it's done well, sometimes it's not. It can bring a lot of people out. I think Spider-Man No Way Home is a perfect example of that. That film is not as good of a movie as its box office was. But for nostalgia's sake and for member berry's sake, I was like, I'm still very much entertained by that movie. Now, it does take for me until Andrew Garfield shows up and then Tobey Maguire. Like, that's the moment where I'm like, okay, now I'm actually enjoying this a bit more. But that's why the film sold well. That's why the film did well. So the fact that you've already had this huge announcement of all of the people in the movie, it's going to be big. The thing that really is the question, how much money they spend. I think it's going to be one of the most expensive things ever because they've already revealed what they're paying the directors for 2 movies, right, for Doomsday. And also we can pick up from that what they're paying also Robert Downey Jr. from that as well. And I think we could probably argue that on casting alone, they're spending probably at least $150 to $200 million between the 2 movies. So they're spending about actually maybe more than $100 to $150 million per movie on just their casting. And again, that might be even lowballing those numbers. So if you're spending that just on your casting and you haven't even made your movie yet, and your movie typically has a spend of what, 200 plus million? We're talking about a movie that's going to cost easy over $400 million to make. And I sure hope they're doing it in the United Kingdom, because if they're doing any of their photography in the United Kingdom, we will find out. We will get those receipts. And if it ends up being a $1 billion film, guess what? If it costs $500 million to make, whatever it is that it ends up costing, all that down the drain. Bet John Campia doesn't talk about that either. All right. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the main topic tonight. Again, we've kind of hinted at it already, but we do have some updated numbers for Fantastic Four, and there were some other things that I wanted to bring up just to kind of put some things to rest and try to explain some things, because I think people like John Campia, for instance, probably need to take some classes and honestly probably just need to retire at this point, but I digress. We are about to talk about some numbers, though, and you know what that means. We are about to get into the nitty-gritty, and it means it's time for some math.
Let us see a real mathematician at work!
That's right, it's time for the math, and to see a real mathematician at work. So we do have the updated numbers. So these are the actuals from the weekend. We always get those estimates out on Sunday, and then on Monday, typically the studios come out and we get the actual reporting. And so whereas it was initially being reported that it had a second weekend of around $40 million, it actually turns out, no, it was actually closer to $38.6 million. And so therefore, it was a 67% drop versus the initially estimated 66% drop. We also saw a lower number for Naked Gun, but not by much. This is the kind of drop off that you want to see, right? 17 million to 16.8. That's not terrible. Bad Guys 2, I think, was at 22 and then dropped down to 21.9. So again, we talked about those numbers already. But as this was, all right, the second weekend of Fantastic Four. Sorry, the second weekend of Fantastic Four, the fourth weekend of Superman. And therefore, this was the second weekend where Superman didn't have those premium format screens. Notice that we are seeing, right, drops that I think, in my own view, really show why losing those premium format screens is not the end-all be-all of things, right? Because these are movies that are going to be dropping off by a bit every single week at this point, right? Once you get especially down to week 4, week 5, right? Law of diminishing returns, you're losing money. Even Jurassic World Rebirth, right? Strongholds in the 30% range, it's still losing a third of its box office every single week. Again, those are good numbers for a big movie like this, 5 weeks out from an initial release, but hey, eventually that money does run out. But we're focusing on Fantastic Four here. So 67% drop, so that is even worse than it was before. Looking at the global totals, that puts the global total at $367 million. For some perspective, the numbers.com even itself has its own chart. Now, this is comparing opening weekend number to where it eventually ends up. So, according to this, if you look at films from the last 5 to 10 years, I forget which one it is, the numbers has the full breakdown of how their chart here works. But sometimes it's hard to find that explanation. But this little range here, right? You see this shaded area. All right, the shaded area is showing you where most films fell, right? So most films that opened around 117 million, usually by this point of their release, are at either up to $258 million or as low as $193 million. So right now, this film is trending towards the bottom of that range. Still not the worst ever, still not catastrophically dropping off, but still also not doing all that well either. You also have this big problem for Fantastic Four because look at that domestic international split. It's the same problem that Superman has, where it has about 53% or so, in this case, of its box office coming from the domestic and about 47% coming from the international. That is not the kind of split that you want to see if you're wanting to make a lot of money globally speaking. As far as net profits, yes, it is better for you to make more money domestically than internationally because you get more money back domestically as a studio. It's roughly about 55% that a studio gets back from its domestic number and about 40% from the international, but that's not including China because from China alone, you only get 25% of your box office back. That's also why China was used for so long really as fool's gold because they would, push those numbers up there and say, oh, we made $100 million in China, but the studio would only get about 25 million of that 100 million. Ergo, fool's gold. Global number looks a lot bigger, but they're getting a lot less back on that money versus what they would have made. They could have made a lot more, for instance, back in the United States and really just the entire domestic market overall. So at $367 million, this puts this film quite a bit, about 40 million or so behind where Superman was at the same point of its release. So not only are you seeing the domestic fall quite far behind for Fantastic Four vs. Superman, but even the international is not showing up for this movie either. Some might say, well, hey, isn't it going to release in some other market? Oh, wait a minute. That's a lot of 724, 725, 723. That's right. It's released in every major market at this point. The same could also be said for Superman. That's why no country is just going to come out of nowhere to save that movie either. That being said, this is in a much worse scenario, okay? The other thing to talk about, right, a 66% drop is not good, but it's not the worst that we've ever seen. As I mentioned before, there's historical level drops from other MCU films. We're thinking especially of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. We're thinking, of course, of films like The Marvels, right, where we saw some of the worst numbers that we've ever seen. A 66% drop in your second weekend, or 67%, as has now been adjusted for, is not terrible in that comparison. But as far as your general average MCU drop, it's right there. Other problem, this one is not opening to the same amount of money. So a lower starting value with a similar level drop to other previous MCU titles means the film is tracking far behind where other films have been previously. Whether you put this up against things from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, even just a few years ago, you'll find something very consistent, which is that, hey, this is not tracking to do well. Now, what happened with Captain America Brave New World? It capped out at $415 million. This film's going to easily beat $415 million. But is it going to get to $500 million? I think most people would say, yeah, it has a pretty good shot at getting there. But that's about as far as most people will go. Because if the internationals were there, okay, we're talking about 550, 600 million, maybe even more. But because the internationals are not there, it means its domestic is going to maybe get to, 265, maybe in a great world, 300 million. It's hard to see that at this point, but it's still early on in its release, so you never know. But not really doing much there. Internationally, might be lucky to get to 250 in a perfect world. And therefore, because of that, we're looking at a best case scenario in a realistic approach being $600 million globally. The problem being that if you assume their $200 million budget is correct, of which there is no reason for us to trust this number because, again, Caroline Reed of Forbes has shown consistently over time, this film was shot in the United Kingdom. Every film Disney has ever shot in the United Kingdom has always had a budget much higher than that was reported, at least by $100 million. At least by $100 million. So if this is following that same trend, guess what? That break even becomes that much higher. So the fact that you're not likely to hit your break even assuming this much smaller budget, that's not even assuming any of the marketing costs, that's why, as of right now, we can absolutely say this film is tracking to be a financial loss for Disney theatrically. This is tracking to be a box office flop. And anyone who's going to try to argue otherwise or try to say, oh, this is actually a really good a theatrical release, this is actually doing really good box office, is lying to you. They are not being honest with you. Whether you want to look at the ticket sales or raw box office data, the facts are clear. Yeah, it's doing better than Cap 4. But everyone thought that it should at least do better than Cap 4. It's doing better than Thunderbolts. Hey, it absolutely should do better than Thunderbolts. But by how much? And also, if that's the comparison game that we're going to play, we're talking about comparing it to the worst box office performances from MCU films that we've seen in the entire history of the MCU. Yeah, we're not seeing the lowest numbers ever, right? We're not the Marvel's level, guys. So anyone trying to spin it that way also is not telling you the truth either. This is not the Marvels, guys. This is now made a hell of a lot more than the Marvels ever could have dreamed to have made. But if we're talking about this being the top of the food chain, in a food chain that only goes up to level 2 in a chain of 10 levels, yeah, by comparison, looks great. 2 is a lot greater than 0, guys, but it's not nearly as good as a 10. But there are many who have also been running with that 80% Friday to Friday drop. Oh my goodness, did you see it? Look at that number, 79.6%. Oh my goodness. Okay, look, an 80% drop Friday to Friday is not good, for the record. I'm not trying to argue that, oh, that's not that bad. But when you're trying to run with that as your headline, when you're trying to run with that as the proof that the film is failing, it kind of gets lost in translation that Friday to Friday number is not just looking at an individual day. Remember, the first Friday of release, in this case, 57.2 million. That number includes your Thursday preview numbers. Ergo, in every case, when you have a big release like this, you're always going to see a massive Friday to Friday drop because it doesn't have the Thursday numbers, right? This new Friday is just by itself. It's not the new premiere. It doesn't have those extra days worth of numbers to include there. That's an important perspective because that definitely changes the mindset, because 80% sounds terrible. But there's no reason to run with that when 66% is also not that great. It's not the worst ever, but it's also still not good. And if anyone is arguing that 80% number, it's catastrophe. If you are also someone who is defending Superman and going after it now, I would say to yourself, where were you when it dropped 70% on its first Friday of release? Where was it's a catastrophe, it dropped 70%? It wasn't there because you're like, well, yeah, of course it dropped 70%. Didn't have a Thursday premiere numbers. We're talking about 2 days worth of numbers for that first Friday up against 1 day's worth of numbers. Maybe you could argue 1.5 days worth of numbers. But hey, if you're having your opening shows be around 4 o'clock, and in today's world, a lot of theaters don't even open until maybe 1 p.m. because the market is as low as it is right now, that's an extra day. So yeah, 70% makes total sense. Guess what? Wasn't a catastrophe. In fact, it's actually more important to say, look at those next days, right? It dropped 38% from its Saturday, 39% from its first Sunday, whereas Fantastic Four dropped not only 80%, but then also 50%, 53% from its first Saturday, and then another 52% from its first Sunday. So there were consistent drops, and that's why the weekend total is what matters versus just that first Friday number. For some other film comparisons, Minecraft dropped 64%. In its Friday to Friday drop. Lilo and Stitch dropped 70-ish%. Oh, 70%. And then you had a 63%, oh man, a 67% Wednesday drop, a 70% Thursday drop, a 55% Friday drop. Oh my goodness. Guys, that 55% drop Friday to Friday doesn't sound terrible. But again, we all know that you can't just look at individual numbers, because I can make a lot of these numbers look pretty scary. Like, oh man, 6770, they're so high. Jurassic World Rebirth, it's cratering. And it's like, well, no, it's not, actually. Because here's what you see down the line. Look at the numbers. They get a lot better. 40s, 40s, 30s, 30s. Now they're getting very low 30s. Put this up against Superman because some people might be interested. 50s, 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 40s. Now, again, we do have an extra week for Jurassic World Rebirth, but this is the reason why, as of right now, Jurassic World Rebirth is trending out better. And so, as of right now, Jurassic World Rebirth has 317 domestic versus Superman's 316 domestic. And if the trend continues as it is right now, Rebirth has a good chance of ending with a higher domestic total than that movie. But anyway, back to Fantastic Four. Those people running with the 80% number, unless they were going to explain this further along, this is not the end all be all. This was not that bad of a thing. It's like, okay, drop Friday 80%. That's not good, but it's not end of the world level numbers. So hopefully now you understand why that is the case. And then lastly, going to the charts, because we love charts here on OMB Reviews. Let's go ahead and just enhance these numbers to get a little bit of perspective. Fantastic Four at $367 million, right after 2 weeks. Talked about this in the box office breakdown video. If this follows the historical average of most movies, that would mean it should make between 526 and 737 by the end of its run. That would put $600 million within reach, but that's assuming it has good holds. Dropping 66%, and in addition to that, dropping massively in your international audience too. That's the other factor here that people may not be talking about. It's not just that the international came in lower than expected. The international audience is just not. It's almost as if they're abandoning this project, abandoning the MCU. Put this up against Superman. That was at 500. Sorry, Superman, the second weekend was up at 408, as I mentioned before. Second weekend of Rebirth was at 529 worldwide. That's the other metric you can mention, by the way. Right? If people are like saying, oh, this is actually pretty good. Okay, put that up against Jurassic World Rebirth second weekend and then tell me, oh yeah, it's doing really good. 200 million or so behind where Rebirth was. Oh yeah, it's doing great, guys. It's doing so good. How to Train Your Dragon, it barely is ahead of that one. And How to Train Your Dragon is one that ended up not making all that much money. And again, for its movie, it did fine, right? Let's look at How to Train Your Dragon. $618 million, right? So looking similar to that. So that's why $600 million is absolutely on the table. But also, this film was holding a lot better than what we're seeing right now for Fantastic Four. Some other metrics: Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning, $353 million. Lilo and Stitch, $610. Oh yeah, oh man, Fantastic Four is doing so good, guys. $300-ish million behind where Lilo and Stitch was. Oh, it's doing great. Obviously, it did better than Thunderbolts at 271. Minecraft movie was at 552 at this point. Oh, man, yeah, it's doing so good. So good. Brave New World, of course, it beats. Not by anything crazy, though. From last year, Mufasa, The Lion King, was at $327 million. Some people might say, well, hey, that movie ended up legging out pretty good at $722 million. Yeah, that film also came out in international markets later and did well in those markets. It had a lot of help down the stretch. Those are not things that are going to be happening for Fantastic Four. Moana 2 is at $600 million at the same point. Wicked was at $360 at this point. But yeah, Fantastic Four, it's doing great, guys. It's doing so good. It's doing so good. So whatever nonsense John Campia comes up with, hopefully now you realize, I know a little bit more about what's going on here. All right, Geek364 saying, you're right, I do need to make more videos. Editing my video for tomorrow right now. Multitasking, great meeting up in person, bud. No problem, dude. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And, dude, The shakes there were awesome. Michael Burgett saying, he teased argument saying you can't take a film like Gone with the Wind and release it today with being short theatrical window, competing with streaming. Fewer people go and it sells as many tickets. That's a terrible John Campia impersonation, by the way. But it's like, actually, all you need to do is say, how many people went to go see Gone with the Wind? Even if you're going to make the argument of, oh, the theatrical window was, however length of time. If you want to play that game, John Campia, okay, fine. Let's try to dig into the data and say, okay, let's look at the theatrical window of the original release of a modern movie and then say, all right, let's just make some assumptions about, okay, if it made this much money, if it sold this many tickets, we could probably figure out how many tickets it's selling per month. If you want to play that game, guess what? We're still going to find the same exact thing, Campia. The same exact thing, which is a hell of a lot more people going to see the movie. Oh, the streaming argument. Oh, man, the streaming argument. Yeah, but they didn't have streaming back then, guys. Yes, the culture was different. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. But it still is ignoring the fact that less people are engaging with this content, because that argument would only hold water if those people are watching that content on streaming. But can you actually show and prove that, hey, the people that didn't go to see a movie like Captain America Brave New World actually did go to see it on VOD? Do you have those metrics in front of you that can prove that point? Unless you do, you're just blowing a lot of hot air somewhere. Let's see. Kreen Yalo says, general quality in top entertainment genres have gone downhill. Music, movies, even TV shows. And now we have so much choice in our entertainment industry, social media, video games, YouTube being a huge part of it as well. Gary Banjo saying, could be a Pedro Ravens clean sweep this year. Maybe, but I don't think so. I think there's a lot of other people that could sweep for the Ravens. By the way, there is a link. I'll go ahead and post that since I don't post it too often to try to avoid any crazy to avoid any crazy trolling. But there is a poll that, not a poll, there is a document that is live. It is a form where you can submit your nominees early for the Raven Awards for next year. So your best movie of the year, your worst movie of the year, right? All the fun things that we do. You can put your nominations out there now. The difference is that I had to get rid of the Google form because people were were trolling and using bots, and it was just really annoying. So now there is a system. I'll go ahead and post the link to it. So click on that link. It'll ask for a password. The password is pretty simple. It's a passcode. It's 1566. Great year. 1566. If you put in 1566, you can fill it out. And you can fill it out multiple times because you can fill out multiple nominations. You can, again, I think you can only choose 2 categories to nominate per form. And you can obviously open it again, bookmark it, have it saved 1566 so that way you can enter it in. But you can start to nominate your movies, your people for best, worst of the year. But I think it'll actually be a little bit more competitive than you might think. Rita Fontaine, Jurassic World Rebirth hits VOD tomorrow. Yes. But again, it's still doing well enough. We'll probably see its biggest drop this weekend. I would not be surprised. Typically when movies hit VOD, that does happen, right? But that's also because, this is the other thing that people don't talk about, it's also because when it hits VOD, the studio pulls it from theaters pretty quickly. So it's going to be pulled from a lot of theaters this weekend, and that's probably why you're going to see a pretty massive drop. Not to mention their marketing focus is going to turn away from theatrical, turn towards VOD. But it still has a lot of gas left in the tank, so... Myra gets saying, the numbers website has been running slow of late, especially on weekends because lots of sites are scraping the site. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's now become that go-to place, but it's just insane. And again, it's also because think about a massive company like Amazon owns IMDb, owns Box Office Mojo, and so they can afford the servers that can take whatever traffic they get. But man, oh man, I feel like the numbers has to have something that they can do to make things a little bit better. Let's see. Kreen says here, for Marvel, their movies full of member berries, nostalgia bait have performed the best at the box office recently. Yep. For as bad as Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness was, This is the other metric you can bring up, by the way. Okay, let's just compare Fantastic Four to just a few years ago. A post-COVID movie happened during streaming, happened during all this. Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. How much did that movie make? Oh, that's right. In its opening weekend, it made $450 million. Opening weekend globally. Fantastic Four hasn't reached that in 2 weeks. Oh, but no, you can't go modern day. No, you can, whether you're taking a movie from 50 years ago or from a couple years ago, you can still find the same exact thing that's happening. My goodness. Forever Sci-Fi, who's a member, saying, I can't wait for Fast and Jurassic crossover movie they'll probably eventually make. You know what? They very well could. Kaliki Oki, what's up, man? Kaliki Oki, welcome. Also, I think that you became a member. Kaliki Oki. Let me see if I can find that. Because I will retroactively honor that and highlight your comments if you didn't tag. It just says here, oh no, subscriber. You became a subscriber 45. Kaliki Oki, man. You see me on the Solid Saturday stream all the time, and now 42 minutes ago, you finally subscribed? Come on, man. Anyway, welcome, Kaliki Oki. Welcome. Let's see. Vera Sci-Fi. Odin, you are missing out if you've never seen Meatballs. I know. Luke Zilla. Rebirth having a 150 to 100 million drop from Dominion is a bit better than the 300 million drops of each of the Jurassic World sequels. Also, do you see Wicked Part 2 making $1 billion? I don't think Wicked Part 2 is going to make $1 billion. I think it'll do well. It'll do fine. It'll do as well as the first film. There's a world I could see it doing a bit better, but yeah, I don't think a lot of audience is going to get lost, because think about it. If you wanted to see Wicked Part 1, you saw it. Chances are you probably liked it because you wanted to see it and you got what you wanted to see, right? As someone who actually saw the film and saw the original Broadway show, I actually saw it with my wife, and we have both seen the Broadway show before, and both of us actually had the same reaction. I was surprised. I've kind of given you the perspective. My wife is much more of a normie when it comes to movies and such. She doesn't really care about the identity politics stuff either, so she's kind of blind to that in these movies. But both of us were very underwhelmed because we thought, man, the live show is just so much better. And we didn't like the changes they made to some of the songs and some of the orchestrations and such. So that's why I could see it doing as well. I could see it doing a little bit better, a little bit worse. Hard to say. It's too early to tell for that one. But yeah, I mean, Rebirth, again, keep in mind, it's still a pretty big drop-off from the last movie, right? That audience has been shrinking every single time for Jurassic World. So they're not gaining audience members. It's just like with Avatar. They're losing audiences every single time. Gary Banjo saying with Worthington, you like musicals. The Wicked Witch is now in Jesus Christ Superstar. Oh boy. That's an old story, though. We heard about that casting a long time ago. It's just that the show is now happening and we now have video from the show. And I will say this much, because there's been a lot of videos made, some clickbaity, all right? A lot of videos made about it. So two things can be true at the same time. First, Cynthia Erivo, who plays the Wicked Witch of the West in Wicked, she's done a lot of other roles in her career. She can sing. If anyone is going to argue that she can't sing, I'm sorry, but you're lying. You're not being honest. She can sing, right? It's just like with the Rachel Zegler stuff, right? People were like saying, oh, she can't even sing. It's like, no, she can. As someone who did musical theater, again, this is something I'm always very open about. I did musical theater for over 20 years of my life, actually. Yeah, my first show was back in 1999 when I was only about 10 years old. And I was doing shows every summer up until right before COVID. 2019 was my last show. So, yeah. So I was at the same place for about, 20 plus years of my life. So I'm not trying to play this is not a debate. So that's why, obviously it's the appeal to authority expert class stuff. I'm not trying to play that card. But if someone doesn't have musical background is saying, okay, this is bad, versus someone who does have musical background saying, actually, this is good, I think anyone who's honest is going to say, oh, no, she actually has a good voice. She actually can sing. Now, that is true. And I heard her version of Gethsemane. She kills it. Singing-wise, she kills it. The problem is that she is a woman who is Cynthia Erivo, who is walking around, and again, I'm not trying to be mean here, but it's the way that she is looking right now these days. She is looking like a demon, playing Jesus Christ in a musical. So that I do have a big problem with. I think that the words blasphemy and sacrilegious and all those other things, I think those are valid. But also at the same time, she does do good. If she was just doing there's these concerts that happen all the time. There's Broadway backwards where the guys sing the girls' songs, girls sing guys' songs. Sometimes those can be really good because it's like, oh, that's actually a really good rendition. Had they done that, that would have been nice. But instead, they decided to do the whole show and decided to make her Jesus. That is where I have the big problem, especially with her looking like a demon these days. It's again, it's a big theological problem. But she can sing. Anyway, Jimmy A. Weapons has been generating buzz on social media for being mysterious. They've been playing up the go in completely blind angle. Yeah, but they've done just enough to where it's like anything that starts to go down the road of looking like it's like demonic possession type stuff, I'm like, nope, no. I stay away from that. Arnold Hay, who's a member, saying, so do you think journalist reports are on our side that they mention 80% drop for Fantastic Four or just clickbait? Honestly, I'm surprised all the negative articles I'm seeing for Fantastic Four. I think that if anything, if it's from a mainstream source, that was their out. Because a lot of them were playing cover for Fantastic Four last week and even going into the weekend, right? That number, though, does give them a bit of cover because they're able, as I said, it looks big. It looks scary. 80% drop. It's cratering. But then you look at other movies, you're like, wait, but Superman dropped 70%, and I don't remember the articles about that film cratering. Because, again, it's a normal thing to have a massive drop. Again, it's not a good thing, but it is a pretty normal thing. It's the Saturday and Sunday numbers that made it really bad for that movie. And even when I say really bad, it's just relative to the current films out. Because, again, in the grand scheme of the MCU movies, it's about normal. It's about average. Arnold, hey, do you see Jurassic World hitting $1 billion? I do not. It's made $750 million already worldwide. Yep. And I already talked about that. Jimmy A. Could Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars be more expensive than Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning? Yeah. Yeah, boy. Yes. Yes, indeed. Arnold, hey. Do you think from this point on DC movies will surpass Marvel movies other than Doomsday and Secret Wars? Honestly, Marvel movies are a huge decline now. It depends on the movie because here's the thing. I think the next big movie is what, Supergirl? I'm sorry, dude. That's not doing it, man. I can't see how that film does anything box office wise. It's still too early to tell. There's no trailer yet, but from what we got as our glimpse of Supergirl in James Gunn's Superman, it's not boding well. And the only thing they have to prep for it are a couple of shows, like Peacemaker. Again, I don't think that's going to help. So no. This is not DC. This could have been DC's moment. If James Gunn was not in charge of the DCEU and you had someone, and again, it's not just about competent, but someone who actually knew what they were doing and didn't have the type of public persona that James Gunn has, I think DC could be running away with it. They would have a field day. The other issue is that James Gunn was supposed to bring unity and to end the confusion that the DCEU had been plagued by for so long. And he actually made things worse in certain ways. Where he was like, oh yeah, this does count, this doesn't count. This is a part of it, this isn't. Well, this one part of it, I am bringing. And also, again, this film release schedule, this content release schedule is just nonsensical. Oh, so what's the next big DC thing? Oh, Peacemaker. Oh, okay. Great. See you back when it's Supergirl comes out? Man, oh man. Arnold, hey, do you think the next Spider-Man will make the least amount in box office from the previous three? Honestly, not having Spider-Man solo and needs Hulk and Punisher don't talk. It's way too early to tell, dude. So, yeah, take all those other things with a grain of salt. Sick Parvis Magna, working a night shift and watching and enjoying your stream. Night shift is passing faster. Good, Sick Parvis Magna. I'm glad to hear it. We got Guy. What's going on, Guy? who tagged to say, do you think Spider-Man will be the next billion-dollar Marvel movie? The suit reveal has been getting a lot of views on social media. That's the thing, is like Marvel adjacent because it's a Sony movie. I know that people don't like to make the separation there, but you have to. It's like back in the day when Fox owned the X-Men movies. I wouldn't have called those Marvel films or MCU movies because they weren't. There has been a much closer relationship between Sony and Disney when it comes to Spider-Man, obviously. But yeah, so is it going to be the next Marvel film to make $1 billion? Again, MCU adjacent film, maybe. It depends on what kind of movie it is. But it's too early to tell. We don't know exactly. The suit reveal, again, might be getting views on social media. Social media is not the end-all, be-all of anything. It's fool's gold in many regards. Frank G., why do you think the most films' international box office numbers have been trending downward? I mean, there could be a lot of reasons for that. I don't think it's the excuse that has been used of, oh, just people hate us. I think that it's because the quality of movies from Hollywood has been dropping. Even before Trump took back in office, you were already seeing internationals trending downward. So that's why the whole excuse being, it's like, it doesn't really follow reality, especially for China. Like, China numbers were really bad, and have been bad, have not recovered to the pre-COVID levels, right? So it's a bit disingenuous to try to use Trump as the excuse, as many people are trying to do with him. Geek64, it's kind of a shame that Fantastic Four isn't doing well, because it is easily the best MCU movie from the last 5 years, but I don't blame people for giving up on the MCU, because I did too, but I like Fantastic Four, and again, a lot of people did. But for me, the ending especially makes it hard to recommend. When the smartest man in the world's first instinct is to want to, and again, spoilers, I guess, but if you're watching this, you probably don't care. When your first instinct is, let's transport the entire Earth because I can transport an egg, and then only after the fact do you think, oh, we could also just transport him. And I know you could argue, well, it's because he knew that he could have done that, but he didn't want to put his son in danger. It's like, I'm sorry, but like, dude, no, it doesn't work. Justin C., with the ever-increasing production budgets for blockbuster films, would be crazy to think that a movie costing $1 billion will be made someday. This including marketing, of course. Yeah, I mean, we've gotten close. If you adjust for inflation, of course, you've probably already gotten there. With marketing, yeah, I mean, you just go back to Star Wars, man. Star Wars, the last film, cost over $500 million production budget? So marketing was probably over $200 million. So you got pretty close with that one. So it could happen. Definitely could happen, that's for sure. Geek True 64 is a member saying, the idea of saying you can't compare box office numbers from the past because of streaming is wild. There were no IMAX pricing decades earlier. That type of engagement argument can go both ways. That's a great point. You bring up streaming, I raise you. IMAX, 3D, let's see, what else? Dolby, D-Box, 4DX, tickets that cost today over $20. Yeah. You didn't have that either. That's an excellent point. Things that, of course, would require thinking, of which a certain Campia does not. Thanatos Felicitas saying her playing Jesus is also tacky. Agreed. They did it on purpose as well. Come on. Jimmy A., I don't know what is worse, Cynthia Erivo in Jesus Christ Superstar or Meryl Streep as Aslan. Ugh. I would say the worst objectively is Cynthia Erivo in Jesus Christ Superstar because of the implications, whereas Meryl Streep as Aslan is still really, really bad, but at least when it comes to that, Aslan is a metaphor for Christ, whereas Cynthia Erivo is playing a character who is supposed to be Christ. Again, it's, yeah. It's not good in either way. I don't think it's worth saying which is worse because they're just both bad. Let's see. Joe Wingster. Odin is a nerd. He needs a swirly. How dare you? Will Riker 94. Welcome. Thanatos Felicitas. James Gunn and the marketing are the reasons I did not go to see Superman. I think James Gunn pushed a lot of people away from his movie. I think it had a much bigger impact than almost anything else. Let's see. Jimmy A. Tag to say, I personally think Spider-Man 4 won't make $1 billion. Far From Home came off of Endgame, and No Way Home had Toby and Andrew. I predict Homecoming numbers. It's possible. It's possible. We have a little bit of time, so let me go ahead and actually pull up those numbers. By the way, thank you all to the new responses. I see John Campia has gotten one. There's a couple in there. There's a couple in there that I actually really like. I would actually very much agree with. But I will hold my tongue. I will hold my tongue on that one. And with that, I have been distracted. So yeah, let's pull up some Spider-Man numbers. I hate using. Well, actually, I can't use Box Office. So you used to have comparisons that you could use on Box Office Mojo, but then they put that stuff behind a paywall, I think. So anyway, let me see if I can get the numbers.com actually working on this. The other issue is that the search on Spider-Man is like, you typed in Spider-Man without the dash. We can't find any results. It's like, you can't do partial results. IMDb search can do that. Come on. All right, let's see. So, Spider-Man Homecoming. Let's pull that one up. This one had $72 million worth of home market performance as well. It's Blu-rays and DVDs. Okay. Create my own comparison chart. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right, I might as well show y'all what I'm doing in real time. Let's do it. All right. So we got Spider-Man Spider-Man Homecoming. Then we need... Oh, wait a minute. Look, the search is not there. See what I'm seeing? There's supposed to be a little search bar here. And it's not. Because I could click on No Way Home now, but there's another movie. I guess I have to. That's just annoying. Oh my goodness, it's so slow. Adjust for inflation. Because why not? Really? Will it give me Far From Home now? No? And now I can't search for it either? Okay, anyway. Comparing these two movies, No Way Home, adjusted for inflation, is worth $2.1 billion, $1.1 billion for Homecoming. So again, if we're looking at ticket sales, if we're looking at value, there's still a chance for the next Spider-Man to be able to do those kinds of numbers. Now, since Far From Home is not showing up here, let me just see. Look, like I can just put Far From Home and misspell it, right? And look, I can still find it. Why can't you have that same feature? Numbers.com. So unadjusted for inflation, that one made $1.1 billion. So each one was able to do quite well. There is a point to be made that, okay, but what is it going to have going for it? Hulk is not going to do that, okay? Hulk is not going to sell tickets to that movie. So that's not going to be enough, right? But is that the only thing that they're doing? Is there possibly more, right? We all know that there was speculation about Toby and Andrew going into No Way Home, but no one knew it for sure until it actually happened, right? So I think that those are the kinds of things that could potentially tip the scale for the film to do better than anything else. Spider-Man is a very good property. It's a very good international property as well. I mean, again, we're looking at numbers here of $700 million for Far From Home. Again, unadjusted, of course. Going to the comparisons here. $600 million for Homecoming globally, $1.2 billion adjusted. I mean, those are insane numbers. So I would say this much. We probably will not see anything close to the No Way Home numbers, but we could see something close to or even in between a Homecoming and a Far From Home. Still too early to tell. Jimmy A. James Gunn sounds a lot like Janie's Got a Gun. Just a random thought. Janie's got a gun. Janie's got a gun. X-Voot. Tazay, what were your thoughts on the original Saw movie? Definitely a chart breaker. That's definitely saying it lightly. So yeah, I actually did like it. because it had that sense of mystery to it. I typically don't like gore films. I don't go out of my way to watch gory films, but I like thrillers. And that one to me had just that right amount. The gore wasn't too crazy yet. As it went on, of course, things got more and more crazy where it's like, let's just make the craziest trap possible. So I actually ended up watching at least the first 3 in theaters. Remember, one of them came out while I was in Houston because of Hurricane Katrina. And I remember that I was able to get in even though I was old enough to get in, but I looked older than I was, and I was actually able to get my friends in to go see it too, because they were a grade below me. So, because that was my junior year, and so they were sophomores. So I was actually able to get them in to go see Saw 3, or I forget which one it was. But yeah. Jenna Wingster, Odin needs the search for the search. They just need to improve their systems. That's all that it needs to do. Jimmy A. Now I'm frustrated that Mark Ruffalo is in Spider-Man 4. I'll separate the art, but he will put a damper on the movie for me. Oh, yeah, me too. I'm hoping that it's going to be a very minimal role for him, right? It's just like a quick cameo type thing. Again, it's still a little bit too early for us to know for sure, but here's hoping. Eric Herrera at 850. We're going to start to wrap things up because we're just about at time. But Eric Herrera says, Hail Odin, I had a question. Do you think Jurassic is doing better than Star Wars due to its releasing every 3 years and not having multiple shows, and the Mando movie will not do so good? No, I mean, release schedule is only a part of the equation, and oftentimes it's a very small part of the equation. It has much more to do with the fact that the movies have not been good, right? Last Jedi was awful. It made over $1 billion, but look at what that was in comparison to the first movie. The first movie made, what, $2 billion plus? And that was a film that should have done a heck of a lot more money than it did. You went from, I think, almost $2 billion, maybe a little bit more than $2 billion with the first movie. You dropped $700 million to $1.3 billion for The Last Jedi. And then the last movie barely made $1 billion, and because of its budget, ended up losing $100 million at the box office. So the next movie, because it's Star Wars, I mean, you think about the movies, there is still a market that will show up. Like, you have about probably $500 million guaranteed, but your budgets have gotten so crazy that would be a catastrophic loss for them. And even that $500 million isn't guaranteed now because of how much worse. I mean, that was before we got the string of terrible shows that we have gotten. So much so that I've even blanked them from my minds. Acolyte, of course, being the worst of the worst. My goodness. Kenobi wasn't all that much better, by the way. But now that you have even more of that, there's even more Star Wars. Not even just fatigue, it's just Star Wars apathy at this point. People just don't care. People would rather go see the originals again. They would much rather spend money on getting remastered editions or Fathom events or whatever it is, right? I think there's an event. I think they're supposed to have an anniversary of that coming up soon, in fact, maybe. So it's not the release schedule, though. That can only do, because we can see release schedules for films and say, okay, we've seen increases over the course of time in their responses. It's the quality of the films. Let's see. Victor Fontaine says here, actually, if they put Professor Hulk in the new Spider-Man, that will keep me from going to see it. As I said, it's not gonna have that much of an impact, though. Jenna Wingster, don't forget Boba Fett. Oh, I will forget Boba Fett. Akuris, what's going on? Or Boba Fett? No. Sick Parvis saying here, my personal favorite is Saw 4, but hey, I saw 1 and 2 are really good too. And again, I haven't seen all of them, but the ones that I have seen, the first 3 at least were, I thought they were entertaining, but by 3 I was like, all right, it's getting a little bit too much for me. But anyway, that's going to be it for me tonight, ladies and gentlemen, because I need to get some dessert or something. I don't know. I'm tired. I just had meetings today, and I'm already tired. That's just the way it works. Mentally exhausted. But seriously, guys, thank y'all so much for being here tonight. This is always fun. Kimberly G. Shadowcat looks like she ended the night at the #1 spot. So congratulations, Kimberly G. Just give you positive vibes for now, as I don't have any giveaways set up at this point. But definitely we'll be looking to that in the future. Sacre Bleu, the Deadly Pogozoro had said, just here to inform your audience that the Saw movies are just cheap remakes of the far superior Dr. Phibs movies starring the incomparable Vincent Price. Actually had not known that. Interesting. And then KJ Fit says, with so many flops, I can't figure out how they have money to keep making these movies and shows. Where's all the revenue coming from to keep making this schlop? It's a good question. For some of them, it's because they have several flops, but then they have a few movies that actually make them some profit. For others, it's because they've got multiple revenue streams. So, for instance, Disney has all these flops, and yet they'll have a film like Lilo and Stitch, which is bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars in net profit. They've got the Disney parks bringing in a lot of money too. They've got ESPN, which is probably bringing in the most, right, when it comes to everything. So there are a lot of different things that can bring them money. Not to mention, a lot of them are already billion-dollar, trillion-dollar corporations, and so they have money to kind of throw around. But yeah, they can only do it for so long, right? You can't just keep throwing money down the drain, as it were. Hey. Thank you very much, good sir. We got X Voot for the $2 super chat saying, thank you for all you do. Love the content. X Voot, thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate that. First super chat of the night. You're awesome. But yeah, that's going to be it for me, everybody. So please make sure to smash the like button. Make sure you also smash the rumble button as well. No Wednesday show this week because back to school. I am back to school this week with meetings and such. So the summer streams are over. We had a really great final stream last week. So please make sure to be on the lookout because the next thing I'll be on is we'll have my box office preview video for this weekend. Got a couple of films coming out, and we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about what the third weekend of Fantastic Four will look like, what we'll see from Superman and all the other films still out in release. And let me see. Friday Night Tights, of course, 4 p.m. Eastern Time for that one. Salty Saturdays on Saturday. And then I'll have students starting next Monday. And so we'll see how I'm feeling that first day back if I have a voice, because sometimes that does happen where I lose my voice. So anyway, thank you all very much for being here. I love you all so very much. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. And actually, I do need to update my... Let me just put in the correct shout-outs video real quick. There we go. Love when I can do that stuff on the fly. Anyway, you guys are great. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, everybody. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my Chosen of Valhalla members, starting off first with my people on Patreon, Father Luca Illick and Miss Martin Muses. Check out her YouTube channel by the same name, Miss Martin Muses. Also to my Subscribe Star people, Matt317. Check out his Twitch channel by the same name, Matt317. And lastly to my YouTube member, Mr. Roy. Shout out to you, good sir. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, check out the top link in the video description below where you get access to that. Also, you get access to a plethora of other things. You get your name listed at the end of every live stream and video, like you saw in those names that came up before this video started. And also access to a giveaways channel that I host over on the Discord server where I give away 4Ks, Steelbooks, Blu-rays, all kinds of stuff. So check that out if you're interested in that. Also, I have an exclusive podcast that I hold at least once a month, and it's always a good time, and you get extra bonus content with that also. So if any of that sounds interesting, again, check out that top link in the video description below. You guys are all amazing, and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.